Man, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's your main man, obviously the one and only Coach Tony, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode, Season 2, Episode 203 of what? The Pull Up Podcast Show. And man, we got another doozy. I mean, over the next few weeks, make sure you continue to tune in because we're going to hit you with just exciting people out the people. We're going to just continue to bring it to you as this is one of the most exciting sports shows on the air right now. And we are loving every moment of it. You know, tonight's guest, he's kind of like from everywhere, background from New York, New Jersey, Virginia, the DMV area. But I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that himself and all that. But before we do that, Val, you know what to do. Drop it.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. So, I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. So, it's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the
Man, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast Show, where we give you quarter by quarter of sports information. Now, by the way, I know I want to shout out to my boy Jay Wise. I know you're getting off work in New York, driving home, and I appreciate you. I know you're going to be checking in. Our guy, definitely Kevin Springer, and my co-host, the hostess with the most, is my girl Val, the voice, sitting in the studios with us tonight. But if you have ever wondered how these top athletes around the country, basketball, football, baseball, who are very talented, how they come up with their averages and how people talk about how quick they are, how they run bases, how they run down the court. Tonight, we're going to talk about the science behind the sports. We've got a gentleman on the night that runs one of the most unique sports contacts that you've ever seen. His company has the ability to monitor and tell you, based on the statistics, who, where, and why are you going to go to the next level. He hails from, again, New Jersey, New York area, but now lives in Northern Virginia. Man, he's got a daughter playing soccer already right now at Eastern Carolina. He's got a son playing in the SEC at South Carolina. And man, we want to dig into this guy's brain for a moment. Bring on my guy, the one and only Jimmy Kibble, Beyond Sports, National Sporting Combine. Jimmy.
Tony, how are you? It's great to finally do this.
I know, right? We've been working on this for quite some time, man. So I appreciate you, man, pulling up on me tonight, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you. Excited about getting, into the nitty gritty of these things and really expanding on all the things that we're trying to do and the things that you and I are going to be trying to do.
Oh yeah, this is absolutely awesome, man. It's so funny. Everyone talks about the whole gamut of sports. We look at what's happening right now. Jimmy, you and I talked about this the other day about the explosion of women's basketball, the explosion of women's soccer. The women are just exploding all over everything right now. And I don't even think it's the explosion, Jimmy. I just think that most of the people that have been watching sports have been closed-minded to what the women have been doing. And now all of a sudden, they're just jumping out there and they're having a hell of a run right now. What do you think about that?
Well, they've been taking it for granted, between WNBA. I mean, women's soccer has always been out there, but for all the other, female sports, it was just kind of there. And I think they're now seeing, you've got athletes like Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, and, these women that are coming out to, back in the day we had Mia Hamm,
right.
Now we've got all the, the Alex Morgans, and the, Kriegers, and we've got all these athletes that are doing great things. But I think people were kind of forgetting that these females are incredible athletes. And that's what we're focused on identifying is, what are these girls, what are these women able to accomplish? Where can they go with this? And how can we start giving them the respect that's well overdue?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about that But let's rewind this clock a little bit. Let's give the audience a little bit about your background, man, where you came from, where you grew up playing sports and all that, Jimmy.
So, the quick and dirty is, came from New York, born, whole family's from New York, grew up in Spain playing soccer. As I joked with everyone growing up that I learned real soccer.
Right, the football.
Right. And as we migrated through, my parents' jobs, migrated down to Northern Virginia, soccer eventually became a passion of football. It can't be more stereotypical than freshman year of high school. I'm 5'2", 103 pounds. And the coach looks around and goes, well, we need someone that can kick. Who kicks? And I played soccer. And it's incredible how, history went from there. My sophomore year of high school, I ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of Jay Wilson. And he was my kicking coach. He was the special teams coordinator for our high school, played in the USFL, the original one.
The original, I remember that. That's still when they could clothesline you and hit you hard.
Yeah, there were no rules. And he's the one that really got me kind of on track. And I had the greatest, everything you see in the movies, I lived it because I'd show up to practice, I'd kick, I'd do what he wanted me to do, I'd go home. The players, they hated me for that sophomore. Right. But funny enough, I reconnect with him years later when his son was at a tryout, and he's now my director of player personnel. So it's funny how things come full circle in life. But he set me on my path. I started connecting with Mark Mosley. I was lucky enough to have some amazing mentors. Mark Mosley, Steve Christie, Scott Norwood, Dave DeArmas, that really, really, got in tune with everything I needed to be from the neck up. And outside of everything that my father taught me, it was lucky. There was a lot of luck involved in the recruiting. My father still tells the stories about how he called Syracuse and he could hear them. You remember the old VHS tapes clacking through him? He could hear clack, clack, clack. He could tell they hadn't even watched our film yet.
Right.
It's nothing like it is today.
Correct.
But by the grace of God, I ended up getting in front of Virginia Tech, and got to play in the All-Star game with a handful of my future Virginia Tech teammates. Got to play in front of Coach Beamer, and got a chance to go play for probably some of the greatest teammates I've ever had. It was a very surreal run. 95 to 2000, I was redshirted and got a chance to start and end my career in the Sugar Bowl. And
oh man, that's been down in New Orleans, right?
Yep. And freshman year we beat Texas, and my senior year, unfortunately, we lost to FSU. But between the mentors I had, getting recruited by Bud Foster, one of the greatest defensive coaches in the world.
Bud Foster, yeah.
Yep. And of course, Beamer was like a second dad. And what's even more unique is that, you mentioned my son who plays for South Carolina, playing for my old, long snapper, but got a chance to run into, Coach Frank Beamer while we were there. So it's incredible the relationships you create in sports and these guys that are brothers for life. And it's one of these things that we'll get into it, but the reason why I do what I do is not everyone gets to experience what I experienced. Not everyone got a chance to have the connections, and don't get me wrong, a lot of luck was involved. Tony, you and I have talked about this. Things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And we did everything we could to make that happen, but it just worked itself out. And still in touch with all these guys. We just had our 25th reunion of the national championship team, or the runners up. We lost, but the undefeated season. And I'm getting to live vicariously through my kids. Like you said, my daughter who, finished her soccer career at ECU. My son, who's one of the top receivers at Georgetown University in the FCS right now. My other son, who's playing, got in his first game, got a solo tackle against Akron the other night for the Gamecocks. And then I got a freshman up on the way. So it's a blessing to have experienced everything I've experienced, more so to give back to my kids and, just hopefully be an influence without being that dad, during the process. So,
Right. That dad during the process. And this is funny this full circle, because my kid, who played ball for me, and we're coming up on our 20th anniversary from winning my first AAU national championship in '05.
wow.
And it's funny you just said that, but he's going to continue to love me because I've shouted him out several times. But my kid, Kevin Giltner, is the associate head coach right now on the men's basketball side of things with the Hokies right now up in Blackburn. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's with Virginia Tech for the last 4 or 5 years. He's originally graduate from Wolford, and coach transferred over and brought him with. And it's just awesome. And so I know exactly what you're saying, just getting the opportunity just to look through the lenses of some of these kids that you had a chance to touch, and now they go on to do some pretty big things. When you were in high school playing and you were coming through, what were your dreams? Did you think, or did you dream of playing Division I? Did you ever think that you were going to be a kicker at that next level, or did you think that just soccer was where you probably was going to end up at?
For the longest time, I got very close to making. I think I got to the regional level of the ODP, got really high up in the rankings. I was lucky enough to be, coached by amazing coaches, Larry Nimero in high school. Ken Krieger, God rest his soul, he passed away this year. Ali Krieger played for the, for the women's national team.
Yep.
And just had kind of everything I was all legs and a head. I had no upper body, I still do, massive calves from all the running and the soccer. But when football came coming around and came calling, I was one of the few guys, kicking the ball out of the end zone. I had a huge leg, had a lot of strength. It's funny. It wasn't until my father took this, it was like a 15-hour ride across the country to go meet with a special teams coach by the name of Dick Pierce.
And that was real, not to cut you off, that was real recruiting. Not to say that these guys nowadays are not, but we're not talking about 10,000 coaches that push one button. We're talking about if you needed to see that school, you had to physically, one, write a letter, put it in the mail. Hopefully the coach didn't have it on his desk. And two, get in a car and drive sometime hundreds, if not thousands of miles across the country.
My father had the foresight in looking at where this was going. And I got to tell you, I had never seen a college football game until I ran out of that tunnel in Lane Stadium.
Oh, wow.
Not honest truth. Everyone was assuming I was going straight to the NFL.
Yeah.
They watched college football back then. I just thought that I was going to play for my New York Giants, and that was going to be it. But people started saying this kid could play in college. Okay. So my dad and I hopped in the car. We didn't go to a school. We literally met with this kicking guru, and it's a lot of time. I mean, it's one of these things that's like it's a core memory, spending that much time in the car with my father, talking about everything you can imagine. And my father and I, were like best friends, even to this day. And we went out there, and, Dick Pearson, it's better coming from my father, but, basically said this kid has a legitimate shot. He's the real deal. And, I wasn't focused on my grades. I mean, you think about everything that goes into this. I was, I knew I had to go to school, but I wasn't going to school.
Correct.
And I was just getting by. And on the way back, my father kind of made a funny joke, which I didn't know, there wasn't any truth behind it. But he said, "You get straight A's for the next 2 years, I'll buy you a Corvette." I got all A's and 1 B+. my final 2 years.
Oh,
And, and of course, I joked with my mom, and she was like, "You think he's going to buy you a Corvette?" But it was really the motivation of all of the sudden, I was going to UNC. My father had, coworkers and, friends that played at UNC and other schools. All of a sudden we were getting, because I used to get tons of letters for soccer, but I was getting letters from Auburn, UNC, Virginia Tech, Liberty. And all of a sudden it became real. We went and saw the schools, and I'm looking at these stadiums going, wow, I could play here. Like this is really real now. And it changed my whole mindset. But, again, I give the credit to my father, because had he not kind of seen this, and he went and asked, he just started asking the right people, what do we do? And it's incredible to think that even now, you get this far down the road, not much has changed other than you've got all this technology, everything's based on hype, and you can get lost. I mean,
exactly.
You go back to the days of, Syracuse or Rutgers and all these schools. My dad was, we had stacks and stacks of VHSs that my father was mailing out. That's really
you guys hear that? Stacks and stacks of VHSs and stuff to make sure that you get everything recruited. We're going to come right back and finish Jimmy's point in 1 minute. We're going to take a quick break. We just finished up the first quarter. Val, pay some bills real quick. We'll be right back on the Pull Up Podcast show with my guy, Jimmy Kibble, from the one and only Beyond Sports Network. We'll be right back.
Are you a small business owner looking to grow? Introducing the KeySpot mobile app. I'm Cynthia McAllister, owner of the IT company Quality SAP. Since 2016, we have been supporting small businesses and help them promote and share their businesses, services, and events across the country. KeySpot is more than just an app. We are a network providing community. KeySpot, connecting communities and supporting small businesses.
And welcome back to the one and only Coach Tony. And this is the Pull Up Podcast show with my guy right here, Jimmy Kibble, CEO, founder, president of Beyond Sports Network. Now, we were talking about the high school, and, once again, Dad wrapped his hand, and I definitely get that, because you and I, we talk all the time. My son's down in Middle Tennessee State and doing some things. But, explain a little bit about the situation of how football, from soccer to football, and now you've gone through the process, Jimmy, and now it's technological, right? We start talking about projects and how we can be better at certain positions. Talk a little bit about the science of the technology behind making an athlete better.
Well, you know what? To segue from what we were just talking about with those stacks of VHS tapes, how is it any different than all of the emails that these coaches are getting? You talk about, all the recruiting forms. It hasn't changed. It's just a different form of communication. And that's where the technology. So when I started the company, my goal was to create something a little bit different. I was lucky enough to go through, the NFL Combine, the Hula Bowl, the national championship and everything else. And you think everyone knows about you. But when you look at the technology, how are combines different? You're no stranger to combines. There are 1,000 combine companies out there. And combines aren't rocket science. But what I started to realize after all these years was, how do you differentiate? Because, Tony, you're a coach. If I'm going to send you the data, well, where do you start? Are you looking for the fastest player, the tallest player, the strongest player, the most agile, the most explosive? I sought out to figure out how to make the data valuable, because you can, I can send you spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets of players. But how do you know where to start? How do you know who the best athlete is? How can I help you improve your program? How can I help you expand on your talent? And, the technology, and I'm not a mathematician by any means, but I did almost 5 years of research. And I started to see a pattern, because the bottom line is, what does it mean to become an elite athlete? How do I help an athlete understand, and especially the parents these days, how do I help them understand where they are, where they can go? How do I help a coach and a scout understand, what are they getting? What are they looking at? Because in a world that's surrounded by hype and who's hot and who's not, and who's got a six pack and who can jump this and who can do that, at the end of the day, coaches are looking at the bottom line. They're looking at the X's and O's. How do I get the best player at this position that's going to help my program win? It's all about wins and losses. And I came up with this proprietary algorithm that helps you, the coach, understand who are the best players. It's a 1 through 5 grading. It's a grade. It's a 1 through 5 mathematical analysis of your ability to move. How in tune with your body are you from head to toe? And we've got some of the most advanced technology on the planet. We use the Vauld timing system, used to be Fusion Sport, and we use Tracer, where we get into the cognitive side. We can really get into the mental side of whether you're a running back. I can pretty much tell you who's going to hit the hole faster. If you're a center, if you're a point guard, if you're a forward on the soccer field, if you're, a defensive minute, lacrosse, we can get into the mental side of it and show the athletes and the parents, for the ones that are serious about getting better, how do we help you get better? How do we help you understand the data?
Let me ask you a question real quick, Jimmy. So I've been out to camps and I've been out to a lot of things, and the biggest one out there is the Nike Spark rating. For those that don't know, Nike will come out to a 7-on-7 and they do what they call the Spark rating, SPARQ. And they'll do a Spark rating with time tested, with a flag jacket and all that. When you got an opportunity to see that, how were you able to differentiate what you're trying to push with the athletes and what you're trying to show in terms of numbers, in terms of truth, and then in terms of, hey, this is time tested. We know that in the next few years, athlete A is going to land here, B is going to land here, and C is going to land there based on what our technology has been able to say. How are you able to difference that from the Nike and the guys that's out there was in the same space trying to do the same thing?
It's a great question. My son he was invited to a Nike opening type thing about 3 years ago. And we ended up with a little postcard at the end of it. And it had his Spark rating. It was like 104 or 114%. And I asked the coach that handed to him, I said, so how do you get over 100%? What does that mean? What exactly are you telling us? And it was very cliche. Oh man, he looked good, man. Your kid can move, man. He's the real deal. Tell me something I don't know.
I'm gonna tell everybody that anyway. If I want you to come back to my combine, I'm gonna say, hey, Jimmy's one of the best kickers I've ever seen. He's great. And then the next kid come up that kicks close to you, he's great too.
Right. And that was the whole point, is how do you differentiate that? And every company has their own, way of doing it. Right. We wanted to keep it simple. Our algorithm has been in the vicinity of 95, 96, 97% accurate in literally predicting the level that you can compete at. Because again, follow the logic, 5 the best, 1, or 0, being poor. Right. We can associate like a 4 to 5 as a Division I guy, an NFL type guy, 3.5 FCS, CFL. You follow logic. The lower you get, the lower you're on the pool. Right. I'm never going to tell a player they can't play at the highest level, because where you can play is totally subjective. Everyone in this industry, it's all based on the eyeball test and what they can do and what I think and what you think. But if you put, a player in front of 32 NFL teams, you're going to get pretty much 32 different opinions. And I'm
exactly
sure
right.
Different.
Because every team is not looking for the same thing.
Right. What we set out to do, I don't want to be subjective. I'm not here to give you another scouting report. There are a million scouts that think they can do it better than the next guy. And kudos to them. Some are really great. But again, follow the NFL Combine and the NFL Draft every year. How many players end up becoming busts? Or maybe they weren't what they thought they were. We set out to create a way that I can sit down and talk to you, Tony, as a coach and say, this guy, he graded out at a 4.1. Well, if I'm talking to a D1 or an NFL coach, FBS type coach, I can tell them with almost certainty that if you put that player on the field, on the court, whatever your surface is, that player is going to compete. You won't see a drop off in the talent, more than likely. Can he play for you? Can she play for you? I don't know. That's not what we set out to do.
Correct.
We wanted
you
to help.
just set out basically let them know if they can compete at that level.
We did years of research with the NFL Combine. I mean, let's face it, the NFL Combine is the epitome of testing. We don't compete with them. My goal is to supplement them. They take the top 350 to 400 guys. I want to test 400 down to 4,000.
Right.
And and those guys don't need us. They're the best of the best of the best. But what we've done through our technology is we've helped athletes reach the next level. Guys that you've never heard of, coming from schools no one's ever heard of.
Right.
We have found a way to level the playing field by giving the players and parents the information they need, the grades that they need, the coaches a way to see this. And when push comes to shove, are you willing to take that information and go learn from it, to go get better from it? When you combine what we're doing at the Combine stuff, you combine what we're doing with Trazer, we're giving the most comprehensive overview that you can get. There's nothing like our athletic performance report where we're literally giving you the numbers. All of your measurements, regardless of the sport, is held to what I call the NFL standards.
Right.
I go to a lot of combines out there and they're not doing the testing right. I've got a huge pet peeve. They're not doing certain things appropriately. You do the pro agility. You can't
and we wonder why these college coaches keep getting in trouble, Jimmy. You know what I'm saying? Mark Lee, I guess that's my guy in your backdoor Carolina, man. He says, "Hey, man, you guys are doing great. One of the best podcasts out here in sports." He said, "Man, I absolutely love your guest, man. Jimmy's telling the truth. He's amazing right now." When you're looking at that, Jimmy, just in retrospect, what I love what you just explained is that it's easy enough for that mom. I've got a young lady, and her name is Melissa Anthony, down in Atlanta. Me and her go back over 30 years, which is crazy. And she's got a podcast she does all about sports where she's teaching women who know absolutely nothing, Jimmy, about football. They got they're single moms, single grandmothers, or what have you, or their grandmothers raising their grandkids. You know how that goes sometimes. And they're trying to learn about football. And I love what you're doing in being able to break it down. And let me let everybody understand what he's saying in a nutshell. I can take the average high school kid that looks like Urkel or, a Pee Wee Herman, but he may have one of the best legs in the country, but no one knows about it. We can be able to put him in this test and spark rate, and we're going to be able to rank him from ranking of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 being the highest. And based on those rankings, from what Jimmy does with his program is able to tell you what that kid will be able to do at the next level. Now, that doesn't mean that kid could actually go to a Power 5 school or a FBS mid-major. It could be that kid could be the best soccer kid or football kid at one of the best Division III schools in the nation.
Absolutely.
But what his program has been able to do is that. And from that, Jimmy, have you had any other companies or any other technologies that seem what you're trying to do that's try to merge with you or try to say, hey, let us talk to you and we can see if we, because right now everything is AI technology and, and all that's chat GPT driven. Have you utilized some of that in terms of the product? So we are very, very careful about anyone we partner with. I've got the best staff in the world. I've got some of the best partners in the world, but we're very careful about it. There are quite a few companies that have tried to copy what we do and have tried to duplicate it. And I'm all for competition. I'm not saying we're the only way, but that's why we got away from doing it all
to really focusing on how do we actually help the players, the coaches, the agents, the parents understand what's going on. I didn't send my kids to a lot of combines because I knew what to expect.
Right.
I've done that. Not much has changed since we left school. But I wanted to give these, these athletes everything you and I didn't have, everything my kids didn't have. I mean, everything I built started out as a selfish motive to keep myself in the game back in 2007 to, in 2016 when I realized my kids are pretty good. I need to help. I need to put something together. My son who plays at Georgetown, he ran a 4.39. And of course, got it completely verified by speed specialists and stuff. He graded out at a 4.1. He's playing Division I football.
Yeah.
Devin Adams came to our event this year out of Peru State. Phenomenal guy. Better guy than he is a player, and I mean that in a nice way. Just an amazing kid. Gets signed with the Patriots, gets cut, ends up in the CFL. The algorithm predicted he would be in the CFL, and he is crushing it.
That's
Tony,
incredible.
For those that like data, like analytics and stuff like that.
Everything is going to analytics, Jimmy. You know that. Every time we talk about the NFL in terms of fourth down, anytime we talk about the NBA down the stretch in terms of taking a three or whatever, everything is like analytics. But, it's incredible. But we're going to be right back. We're going to take a halftime break, and we're really going to dive into the analytics of things and what's going on at Beyond Sports. And then I'm going to have a video to show about what Jimmy is really doing. We'll be right back on the other side. Val, pay some more bills at halftime. We'll be right back on the Pull Up Podcast Show.
We're kicking off a whole brand new season. I know you guys have missed us, but we are back. And of course, it's always exciting and wonderful to have a very talented individual who has started a wonderful tech company. And then, of course, he is the host of Tech Thursdays on a platform called the House of Creativity. And he has just finished his book, Where? Jay Mullane Wise. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Val the Voice Johnson. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
One thing I forgot to mention is that also about, I want to say October, November of last year, Wise stepped into the podcasting game, initially starting on Instagram and then started his platform, Wise Going Live. I was recently on the platform, but I think I've been there 4 times. It has been extremely gratifying to see how far you've come as a host, a podcaster, and also a moderator, sir. So I just wanted to say kudos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. When you're around great talent like yourself, Val the Voice, it only does inspires you to go forth. And we have amazing community of people that inspire us to actually, keep accountable. You keep me accountable. I keep you accountable. We all keep each other accountable, and we try to do the great thing to move forward.
What is going on? I got to do the opening. I didn't do that. Just like from that movie, I'm going to get you, sucker. Everybody needs a theme song.
And you got that right.
Everybody needs a theme song. Let's not get it twisted.
Man, welcome back to the Pull Up Podcast Show. I always love that commercial because every superhero needs a theme song, right? I think I had to give Jimmy a theme song, Another One Bites the Dust. For those that don't know, that's that old Queen song. So, we were talking about you like that, right? So we were talking about that. Let's jump into Beyond Sports. But before we do that, Val, we got a little video to play. Let's show everybody everything that Jimmy and I have been talking about in terms of the ratings and what they've been doing. Let's show a little bit of what Jimmy's been doing with his work behind the scenes. Let's throw that video up there real quick, Val. And that's all. The next time I've got Jimmy on this platform, trust me, we're going to be seeing the same video with me on the basketball and the guys running down the court, man. That's what you're going to see. And Mark, by the way, said, man, he said, Jimmy, I appreciate you repping the Gray Beard Club, man. He said, I got one of those too.
Nice. Yeah, I got to get it under control at times.
I know, right? I already know. Hey, man, let's dive into this thing. I mean, there's some great kids. You and I have talked about some things. I've seen a lot of the stuff that you've been doing over the years, and just people, they see the outcome, Jimmy, right? They don't see from the scratch. Let's talk a little bit about the difficulty in putting on one of these events, the expectations once the event's there, and then what are you doing with that information, and talk about a couple of kids on the backside that have benefited from it.
Yeah, so the whole company actually started out as a social network. I was in NFL Europe in 2005 playing for the Cologne Centurions, and Facebook and MySpace and LinkedIn were just starting.
I remember MySpace.
Yeah, I remember thinking to myself, this is ridiculous. Why would anyone want to get on the social media? And here we are. But I realized right off the bat there was nothing out there for us being the athletes. And I created a network, Beyond Sports Network, for aspiring professional athletes. Because the biggest thing, getting back to the VHS tapes, the recruiting and everything, at every level, it's how do you cut through all of the,
red
tape? How do you make your link, your email, your VHS tape, your highlight film, how do you make it, jazzy enough that someone's going to say, oh, I want to watch that? It's gotten harder, but what started out as a social network, we had like 4,000 or 5,000 athletes within the first year. We became the official network and the combine for the Arena Football League back in the day. Before it ended up shutting down, and now it's coming back.
Right.
But for the first 3 to 4 years, we ran the network side of it. But I was getting the same questions that I was asking people from the athletes, for the events they were going to. Is this legitimate? Who's running it? Should I be paying for this? Where's my information going? Do I have to go to multiple events? Because, while I was, just getting out of it and players were still going through it, if you went to a tryout, usually you were stuck with just that team or that organization knowing about you. They weren't sharing it. And it was the same thing. You might go to a league workout, which we started to kind of create the idea of, if you come to an event, why shouldn't you be seen by everyone? Thus was born the idea of the National Scouting Combine. I wanted to provide athletes maximum exposure for minimum expenses. And don't get me wrong, Tony, I'm in business to make money. I'm not in business to rip off the athletes. God knows how much money my parents spent on my dreams.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of 4. Both of my sisters played soccer at Virginia Tech. My brother played football briefly at Virginia Tech. Very athletic family. Now I have 4 kids. And my sisters have, everyone's athletic. and you just look at the expenses. And there are a lot of events and a lot of things out there that I think are kind of taking advantage of the, I really have to have my kid doing this. Do we really need the high end this and the high end that? Do I really need to pay this much for this event? But I wanted to create something that when you come to my event, you the athlete, or you the scout or the coach, if you're paying to come to my event, I want to make sure, one, we go above and beyond. You talk about the logistics are incredible, and that's where I dote on my staff. I've got just an amazing group of guys: Scott Puchel, Derek Rains, Eric Wilson, DJ Daniels, and Jay Wilson, as we've mentioned. I got 30 or 40 people that jump in at any time. Jay's kids jump in. Chad Clark up in Pennsylvania. I mean, and again, a lot of these guys I played with, played against, or played for. That's the brotherhood. But the goal was, we want to tell your story. You're not just going to be player 1, 2, 3. You're Tony Thompson from Tennessee, and we're going to let coaches know what makes you unique. How can we make sure that when it's all said and done, you come, you kick butt and take names at our event, you grade out high? Well, one, that's going to tell the coaches, I got to go watch his game film.
Right.
We're not a big fan, and I've never been a huge fan of running these specifically high school events where you do some of the testing, but then you throw in all these drills and you throw in all these one-on-ones and the places where guys can get, and the girls can get all macho and tough.
Right.
When you don't
or hurt, injured.
Well, that's just, I've seen kids break noses, chip teeth. I've seen it happen at some of the schools that I attended and the other ones where I look at the coaches and go, who's controlling this?
Right.
Are you really looking at a guy that's not in football pads, that's not in a football position, that's not in a football moment, and doesn't have refs holding them accountable? Every single coach I've ever talked to goes to game film. So that's where, again, staying straight-laced with this, we want to make sure that when you get tested, you're getting the absolute best testing. We're going to tell your story. We're going to make sure that the experience is second to none. We put so much time, when it comes to our national event, it's a 3 to 4 day event. We've been in Indy for the last 8 years. We're moving into Naples this year. These players have a chance to be seen and promoted to every single professional football league on this planet. We have guys that have been playing in Japan, Tyler Kolka,
right?
Tremendous quarterback, that just, I think he won like his second or third. The guy's unstoppable, X-League championship. Makani, another former guy, just got signed over there. We've got guys playing in Europe, guys playing in Canada. Cole Speaker, wide receiver up there. They can't stop him. Devin Adams, who we talked about, absolutely crushing it. And guys that have gone through the NFL, AFL, all the different indoor leagues. We want to help you. We want to make sure that everybody, if you're willing to put your money where your mouth is, because let's face it, you are making an investment.
That's the key. And speaking of that real quick, I don't want you guys to think that when Jimmy says put your money where your mouth, that you're paying $495, $500 like I'm doing with these freaking AAU basketball events. This is very reasonable. Tell them what the average cost is, Jimmy.
So at the national level, when we're doing the big event for the athletes, where they're paying $800 to $1,200 to go to these events, we charge the players $300. We feed them. We give them the apparel. Trust me, these aren't money makers, because I want to make sure these guys are receiving everything on the back end with those opportunities. At the high school level, we're charging players $50. But Tony, we also have my nonprofit. It's the Beyond Sports Network Foundation. It's a 501c3 private operating foundation that's helping us keep the costs low. And the one thing we're trying to do this year is get very aggressive in starting to, fundraise, because in today's economy, there are a lot of players and parents that can't afford to come to these events. It could be as simple as $50, or players that are going to fly across the country because they're going, this might be it. They can go anywhere else.
Jimmy, those are the majority of time, those are the ESPN stories. Those are the kids that are neglect. No one wants to know that Jimmy Kibble lived up the street in a $1.5 million house. Daddy did great, 4 brothers and sisters. Nobody gives a damn about that. But if Jimmy's mom was a single parent and Jimmy only had peanut butter and jelly to eat every day, and he had to take a bicycle across the tracks for 2 miles to get to school, went to football practice and rode his bicycle back home at 9 o'clock at night, in the dark and danger, that's a story, right? Everyone wants to know that. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to take our last break of the day, and we're going to come back, and Jimmy's going to talk a little bit about how the effect of NIL, what the pro portal is doing, and how he's able to change that. Val, let's pay our last bill of this week and get these bill collectors out of my pocket, please. Thank you.
I've always thought about how my mom has supported me in any creative endeavor. How beautiful was it for your mom to be the superhero in your life and show up in your creative ventures with this book?
People ask her to sign the book more than they ask me to sign the book. Sometimes I step to the side, I take their picture. And, we have to celebrate our mothers. We got to celebrate our beginning.
There you go.
So she comes out with me. Every event, she is there. Even when I tell her she does not need to come, she will show up in the parking lot. And I'm like, oh, okay, you coming? Okay. I'm like, all right.
Right. And she got a bottle of wine in her hand.
What in the world? Why are you giving her alcohol?
No, I'm just saying. She showed up in the parking lot. She got a bottle of wine, nice wine. She's going to set it down. She's ready for the show, Val. You know what I'm saying? Because the funny part about it is, CJ, I've actually talked to Val. I thought about, writing a book myself called My Man's in Them. But,
I love it.
And look at Val.
My man's in them.
My man's in them. But you got to read the book. You got to read the book. But it's a play. CJ, I apologize because Val should have dropped some old Dub C so you could have came out crip walking. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not flamed up right now. I got to hold on. Trying to get me shot.
Going back to school tomorrow, like I saw you, Miss Charles. I saw you.
I mean, I can crip walk, so please, but I'm kind of, I'm authoring right now. You guys are funny.
And bring it back. Man, this is your guy, the one and only Coach Tony. This is the Pull Up Podcast Show. Make sure you like us, subscribe to the show, and more importantly, share with your friends. We're here speaking to my guy, Jimmy Kibble, with Beyond Sports Network about the scientific evaluation of the athlete when it comes to sports. Now, Jimmy, my cousin's on air tonight. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He's been hanging out with Coach Deion Sanders prime time through Jackson State. He's still down there right now as a sports doctor. And as a matter of speaking, you might well clear your schedule, Jimmy, because you're going to be doing another show with him on Sports Talk with the Doctor that he has his podcast talking about the sports technology. And definitely, I think what you're talking about on his show would definitely resonate. And we're talking to Jimmy about testing of the athletes and how we can determine whether or not they're going to be an elite athlete or a mediocre athlete or maybe an intermediate athlete. But once you go through his combines, you will have a ranking. And Jimmy, those rankings that your athletes are getting, how close to being true are they? What's the 20, 30, 40%, 100%? What's the give or take?
So it's important to say, and again, this is where it comes down to us leveling the playing field. Doesn't matter where you came from, what you look like, where you played. It comes down to what can you do with your body and how can we help you? And our algorithm has been in that 95 to 98% accuracy level, predicting where you can compete. Now, again, Tony is a coach. I've told you I can send you the data on a player. Not because, well, here's what I thought and I saw him and I wrote this and all my teammates thought the same thing. No. It is 100% based on the combine numbers, what our algorithm has analyzed this player being able to do, and it's in real time. Now, if you haven't tested in the last 10 months, 12 months, you got to get retested. I think a lot of people take for granted, oh yeah, I did this 2 years ago. A lot can change in 2 months, in 2 weeks.
Yeah, a lot can change. And I got a question, Jimmy. Somebody asked, in terms of the tests, what are the tests that you guys are giving that you're basing these rankings on?
And that's important. Again, we mentioned about how a lot of events only do a couple of events, a couple of tests. They do 2 or 3, maybe 4. So the standard tests, obviously, the 40-yard dash, but here's where it gets different than any other event. The 40-yard dash, the pro agility, and the 3-cone are all laser timed. You don't get human error. These lasers that Vald has created and have perfected are unbelievable. Tony, they are some of the coolest stuff, and my inner geek goes nuts when I see these things. But they are, they're accurate down to the nanoseconds. We do the vertical jump, the broad jump. We do that manually because there's really no other way to do it. Right. And then, of course, the bench press. When you start getting into basketball, October 27th, we're doing a basketball and volleyball combine up here in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
That's where we change things. We don't do the 40, we do the 3-quarter sprint. We'll do the lane agility drill. Again, all laser timed. We'll do the pro agility, the vertical, the max vertical. Tracer is a staple. I mean, the more I talk to Tracer, we've been partners with them for 7 years. We are coming up with some really, really cool stuff. Where the company's going, where we're trying to take this. My only goal is to become the authoritative system and company that can literally prove everything about your athleticism. We can tell you, what are you capable of doing? And from that point, when you get our report, which has your biometrics, all held to NFL standards, your combine scores with your grade. But now, Tony, for every kid you've coached or when you were an athlete, what was one of the first questions you got coming off the court? How'd you do? How'd you compare?
Exactly.
Not one event, God's honest truth, not one event I've taken on my kids' tour that I've gone to, did I ever get a report on the comparison. Wow. When you come to our event, we have right away, if you're a wide receiver, you're going to see how did you compare against every other wide receiver at that event. You're going to get all your tracer data, speed, speed, reaction, acceleration, and deceleration. We can look at how fast are you cognitively seeing something, reacting to it in the right direction, getting to that point of contact, and then being able to change direction. We can utilize our tracer system, which they've come up with version 2, which is unbelievable. There's so much more that we're tracking on these players. I can basically see, have you been hiding an injury? Maybe you're injury prone, or maybe you're not the athlete up here that you think you are. But you know what?
Because we already know, Jimmy, right? There's a difference between hurt and injured. You can play hurt, but you can't play injured, right? We already know that, and these athletes sometimes hide behind that. Looking at the system, Jimmy, in terms of what the details are and how they pull out when these athletes come to see you. And we talked a lot about the football. In the future, where are you trying to grow in terms of basketball, soccer? What's next for Beyond Sports?
So I'm going to go turn the clock back for a second. Leading up to the pandemic, we had a phenomenal opportunity. We were privileged to be invited out to Iowa to run, as you and I have spoken, one of the JUCO conferences. We ran their basketball combine, 250 female and male athletes, and we put them through the equivalent of the NBA combine testing. We have done soccer combines. We've done volleyball combines. If we can measure it, my goal is to help you. I'm not here to become another combine company that's, we're doing lacrosse and we're doing rugby and we're doing it. No, right. I am here. It doesn't matter your sport, because we don't We're not pulling a ball out unless we do one of our
We
national
testing
events.
athletes. We testing agility. We testing athletes. Period.
Right. We're not pulling the ball. There's no basketball, no volleyball, no football, no rugby. They're not coming out because you know what? You have game film. And I should say, if you're 5th, 6th, 7th grader, that's just looking to get the numbers, we're not giving you a grade. I watched my son from 6th grade to 9th grade go 4 shoe sizes and 18 inches.
Exactly. And I probably did about 3 shoe sizes and about 4 inches.
Right. We will help, we give the middle school athletes every opportunity to get the numbers, start to see it, because you can use that data to get better. But at the same time, for the high school kids or, the draft eligible and free agent guys, you talk about injured and hurt. People should go back and watch the old movie, The Program. You remember that?
And that was a true story about my man, Bobby Bowden, baby, in prime time.
Yep.
I love The Program, baby.
But the big thing is too many of these athletes have it in their mind, and you mentioned this early in the show, they've got in their mind it's NFL or bust, D1 or bust.
Correct.
Everyone, all these athletes at all these levels put all their pads and their pants and their gear on the same way. There's no difference. There's a difference of money and there's a difference of facilities, and sure, everyone wants to be part of that. But I'm going to tell you, and the thing that gets me is when we get these D2 and D3 guys to come to our event, one, they are so appreciative of it because there isn't a lot of people, it's like we were talking about the female athletes. When we run these events for the females, they love it. We're not doing anything differently, but we're giving them the respect of this is for you. How can we help you? These guys come to our event and you see real passion. They are there because they love it. Tony, nothing makes me feel better to see these guys.
I would have loved to have seen you about, what was that, Jimmy? Maybe it's 3-4 years ago when App State was killing everybody. Right? Yeah, I would have loved to see the guys at App State go through this because they upset Michigan. They upset Clemson on their run at that time. Virginia. I mean, these boys at the FCS was upsetting the FBS boys big time. And we're talking about no one wanted to play App State. Nobody. Right. They're like, oh, we'll play. No, we're not playing App State. And now it's the South Dakota State, right? South Dakota State's always been doing their thing like that.
And North Dakota State, too.
And North Dakota State, exactly. Right. So it's incredible when you see that. And what I like about what your technology does is that it doesn't care, like you said, whether you come from living under a tree in the woods or whether your house is 5,700 square foot. When you step on that combine field and I put that laser on you and I tell you to do what I got to do, it's going to differentiate you against the guy that you're competing against. And sometimes that may be one contract or one scholarship.
Those lasers do not discriminate, but neither do the measurements. I mean, one on the App State thing, I would love to interview those coaches because I would give them kudos in that they were probably recruiting true athletes. I would love to test them. For everyone that loves data, loves analytics and stuff like that, Tony, a fun fact that we've kind of kept close to the vest is my algorithm has picked the winning Super Bowl team 3 years in a row.
Man, I'm manager, Jimmy. I need to be. Hey, for promotional purposes only, I give out these tags here on the podcast. Man, I need to have known that. Right. So the thing is this: we already know Pretty Boy Mahomes is back to back, and we know that he's probably the second coming to Tom Brady. Right? We know that. The question is, can Pat Mahomes do it again and become the first NFL team to three-peat?
Let me touch on that because if you were paying attention a couple of weeks ago, they were making fun of him having a dad bod.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
I remember that.
Look, I got signed by the Patriots in 2000. I came in with Tom Brady. I got to see firsthand that guy's passion for training. He was the first one on the field and the last one off. I mean, I was a kicker. I was sitting there and they put, a lot of people don't go into it. They put him through hell. As a rookie, they didn't give him a shot. No one gave him the respect. So I was always
because Drew Bledsoe was the man.
Right. And I was a huge Tom Brady fan because I sat back going, that guy's got to have a dad like mine with the way he talked about him, the way he pushed him, the way he kept him, focused on that. But you take someone like that, you take a Tom Brady. Here's the interesting thing about the combine. We don't measure anything that can't be improved. We don't factor in God-given things. Whether you're 6'9" or 5'3", last time I checked, Spud Webb was pretty good at basketball. Julian Edelman was the go-to man. If you ever look at, there's a sheet, it was put out by one of these agencies. Simple example, if you're 6'7", 225 as a quarterback, you have 100% chance of getting signed by the NFL team. I went through the Hall of Fame. I can't find anyone in the Hall of Fame that's 6'7".
Correct. I was just
what
about to say.
What were these guys or girls drinking when they came up there?
You know what? Because they always said, as well as I know, Jimmy, the old saying is, you can't teach height. You only can develop.
And that gets back to the Patrick Mahomes thing is, people were goofing on that he's got a dad bod. But you take the right athletes. We tested this kid. I think he was an 8th grader out in Wheeling. We did a small combine with the Wheeling Rough Riders for the youth in that area. This kid, he didn't run anything special. He didn't run a 4.3. He didn't jump 39 inches or anything like that. But for his size and what this analyzed, and especially the Tracer data, he was packaged as one of the best athletes at that event. I'm telling you, you would knock him. You look at him and you think you'd knock him over with a pillow. I mean, he was 80, 90 pounds, soaking wet. But you know what the data told? One, he was a basketball player, football player, and ice hockey player. And I think he did some track and field. So for everyone listening, the multi-sport athletes are incredible. But if you take a Patrick Mahomes, if I had the privilege of, I should call Steinberg, if I had the privilege of just testing him, I'd be willing to bet from a cognitive standpoint and his ability to control his body, I would almost be willing to bet he's going to grade out at the NFL level because, you watch the NFL Combine, as you know, everyone comes back, oh man, he ran a 4.4 or he ran a 4.29. Cool. Can he catch the ball? Can he cover a player? He bench pressed, 57 reps. Awesome. Is he going to be able to block the guy coming around the corner? Oh, he jumped this. Right. The NFL Combine and everyone else. Those are the little intangibles. Well, and people look at this going, wow, look what he did. And no disrespect to those guys because the people that do that are amazing. I wanted to look at what can you do with your entire body because no matter the sport, put yourself into a position in football, lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, whatever. I mean, even tennis. When you've got someone attacking you, you have nanoseconds because remember, everything is from here up. After your body, after all the training, the cognitive side. How fast can you make decisions? How fast can you move your body? Is your brain telling you to make the move, make the pass, make the juke, break down, focus on the hips, make the tackle, make the play, whatever that is? Are you in tune? And I think that the majority, if not all the events out there, lose focus on it because everyone wants to find that 4.3 guy. Everyone wants to find that stereotypical passes the eyeball test, athlete. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? And again, we didn't really go public. This is the year we're starting to do it. That's why I can't appreciate the time you're giving me tonight. We've got almost 15 years of proof. We've got the data. It works. Again, all these players, Josh Resignalo, head coach of the Rough Riders, they're going to play in the NAL this year. He came to our event as one of the coaches, worked the event. He signs 7 guys. He saw all the talent that was there. And again, I love these guys, but they all know the majority of these schools they went to, people didn't hear about them. But you know what? For everyone that, was NFL or bust or, no, I'm not going to play for $200 or $500 a game. I want the big money. 7 guys get signed by Coach Resignalo and Jay Wilson, their director of player personnel, who's also ours. They won the AAL championship this year. 7 guys are getting championship rings. I got to go to the games. It was an incredible experience. And Coach Resignalo was like, and I've known him for 10 years. I've sent him players. Every single year there are players from our event that have played for him. But for the players, and this is the thing that I try to tell these guys, I sign with the Patriots. I get hurt. I partially tear 2 ligaments in my kicking foot, work my way back up, sign in the Arena Football 2. After, as I'm starting a family, I'm making $163 a game.
Right.
Not a lot of money after taxes. I had the most fun. Moved from AF2 to the AFL, to the New York Dragons, end up signing in NFL Europe, end up with the Philadelphia Eagles in 2005. Now, I was behind Adam Vinatieri and David Akers. I would have had to shoot one of them to get my job.
Vinatieri. Oh, yeah. Vinatieri's big boy.
Amazing players to play, to learn from, to play behind. And look, I was lucky enough to play in the preseasons. I got close enough. Everything we do, Tony, it's not just about helping these guys through this incredible technology and this algorithm that I've created. If you come to my event and you're not more educated and you don't have more resources and you're not more informed, then I wasted your time.
Yeah, exactly.
Knock on wood. I tell people, not to interrupt you, I tell people, go to the testimonials page, see what players, agents, scouts, and parents have had to say, because I don't care where you came from. I don't care what you look like. You talk about all Deion Sanders, the HBCUs. Everyone wants to come up with another HBCU game, and I'm sitting there going, how does that help the HBCUs? You're just playing against each other. I had I didn't know all the I don't care. White, black, Asian, Mexican. Right. You come to my event. We've had players come from 18 different countries come to our event and make it to the next level.
That's the important key right there. Yeah, that's the important key of all. It doesn't matter where you come. And that's why I said my nephew at Jackson State, because he's a Deion Sanders guy. I'm going to get you guys with it. Man, listen, Jimmy, I know we got to bring it down here. We can go on. I know you and I, we can talk about this because I love it.
We'd be here all night.
tell the people that want to get involved, that would like to come out to a combine. So if you have a nephew, a son, a cousin, or someone at the church or in the neighborhood that may be able to get involved or want to at least come by Jimmy's events. Jimmy, tell them how to get in touch with Beyond Sports, man, and how to continue to look at when the next combine's up, when they're coming up.
First of all, you can go to the website, nationalscoutingcombine.com, to see what's going on. Like I said, we're doing a local combine up here in Northern Virginia. Our goal is to go across the country. We're talking to a few pro leagues that will help us do more at the high school level. We're trying to get very aggressive with the fundraising so that we can take this event. Our goal is to run 15 to 20 to 25 of these events in numerous sports around the country, because, Tony, the biggest goal is that we can actually start having national events, not all the other postseason high school all-star games, and where it's, as we both know, it's all subjective to who knows who and who's connected. Right. We could prove that if we have, let's say we have a big national event, we go find the best basketball athletes around the country and invite the best 200, 300, 400 to a national event. We're not doing it because you like the guy or I like the guy or, I think she's a great player. It will be proven through the numbers. Everyone can get through to us at NS Combine on Twitter, Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Threads, Facebook. If you search National Scouting Combine or NS Combine, you will find us. Let us know where you want us to come. Follow us. We want to hear from you. Like I said, we're here to help you. We're trying to get very aggressive in terms of our goals. We're looking to really fundraise so that we can bring this event and also, bring it to where athletes may not have the opportunity. We don't have to go to all the major cities. I want to go to the suburb. I want to come to where you are, where you haven't had a fair shake, or you have to be invited to these events. You don't have to be invited at the high school, the middle school and the high school events. You don't have to be invited to our event. We want to help you get the data, get the resources, get the report, and most importantly, the feedback.
And I can tell you guys, reach out, keep watching me here on the Pull Up Podcast Show. Well, I got guys like this, like my main guy, Jimmy Kibble, with Beyond Sports. This is Coach Tony in the Pull Up Podcast Show. Val, this has been another one in the books tonight. Jimmy, man, I appreciate you. This is absolutely incredible. We had tonight, my God, talking sports science. So for those of you that are mental side of the house, Jimmy Kibble, BSN, go out and check out BeyondSportsNetwork.com. Take a look at some of the events you're talking about. Obviously, with me, strictly talking about what's going on in the agency side of the house. This right here, the Rise, NIL. Make sure you get out to the THE Rise, RIZE, with the rise.com as we connect athletes and brands together, making sure everyone has the opportunity to succeed. And for those of you who listen to music, entertainment, make sure that on Tuesday nights, upcoming with us, me and my girl, my host, my co-host, Val the Voice, on Tuesday nights on Interludes, Talk on Tuesdays. We talk about music, we talk about movie reviews, everything. So make sure you tune in tomorrow night on Interludes Talk on Tuesday. And for those that like to get their read on, and you've been following Interludes, Val the Voice has dropped her book. And we want to make sure we talk about how a DJ saved my life, how Val goes through the intricacies of how actually DJing and going into the world of podcasting actually saved her life and moved on to what she is doing. And for those that want some more of what I'm doing like Jimmy, tune into the Pull Up Podcast Show, because next week, I'm going to tell you one more time, next week, we got none other than Coach Danielle Vigiloni from the Los Angeles Sparks. She's going to talk about my girl, Rakia Jackson. She's going to talk about Hamby. She's going to talk about Candace Parker. We're going to talk about Skylar Dickens and what they're doing. And, of course, my girl, Caitlin Clark and Doris. So you want to listen to the pros. Make sure you tune in next Monday night on the Pull Up Podcast Show, because we're going to have the coach with the Moses here and Coach Vigiloni, and she's going to break it down. Tonight has been absolutely wonderful. Jimmy, man, I appreciate you being on the show tonight. You know, you and I are going to catch up. But, you know, in words of everything I always say, peace.
Thank you.
It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. It's the Pull Up Podcast. Pull up, pull up. Bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. So, I said bounce the voice and Coach Tony, you know. It's the Pull Up Podcast. So, it's the Pull Up Podcast.